Imagine trying to push through a law that forces the entire internet to check everyone's ID at the door, like a bouncer standing outside a club, only to find out that the very tech companies who literally build the privacy software the internet needs to even function are staring you dead in the eye and just saying, yeah, no. That's exactly the kind of chaos playing out right now. And honestly, it's wild to watch. Because on June 15th, the UK government dropped a massive announcement. They want to expand their internet rules and completely ban anyone under the age of 16 from using social media. Full stop. And here's the twist nobody in power seems to have seen coming. Instead of everyone quietly falling in line, the biggest privacy companies on the entire planet basically declared a full-on industry revolt. I'm talking about Proton, Mullvad, and Mozilla, the actual holy trinity of the open internet and data protection. The absolute legends of this space. They just teamed up and drew a giant line in the sand against this whole age verification nightmare. And you have to understand the pattern here, because for months now, politicians have been acting like they could just pass these sweeping surveillance laws and the tech companies would somehow magically figure out a clean, painless way to scan everyone's face or hoard everyone's physical passports without a single thing going wrong. Like it was just a technicality, just a box to tick. But the backlash has officially gotten way too organized for them to handle. These privacy giants aren't writing polite little letters to their local representatives anymore. No, they're aggressively weaponizing their own platforms, running absolutely unhinged anti-surveillance ad campaigns, and flat out refusing to turn their software into digital turnstiles for institutional overreach. Honestly, it's the ultimate high-stakes game of chicken. Because these governments fully expected the exact same developers to just roll over and build the compliance infrastructure for their brand new laws. That was the whole plan. But instead, the companies that actually hold the keys to encryption are now publicly warning the entire world that this whole system is a trap. And if you've been paying attention to how digital checkpoints suddenly started popping up everywhere, from Texas in the US all the way to the UK, then you already know how fast this thing is spreading. It's not slowing down. But for the very first time, we're watching a coordinated corporate resistance that just might actually break the entire plan at the technical level, and watching lawmakers slowly realize they have zero leverage over companies that don't even collect user data in the first place is, honestly, pure comedy gold. So, to really understand why these companies are completely losing it right now, you have to look at the sheer absurdity of what lawmakers are actually demanding behind closed doors. When the UK launched this newest push to restrict social media for everyone under 16, they tried to frame it as this super simple, wholesome little safety measure, just protecting the kids online. Who could argue with that, right? But here's the reality they conveniently left out. In order to check whether someone is a kid, you inherently have to force literally every single adult on the internet to prove their identity too. There's no way around it. To verify one group, you have to surveil everyone. And Proton saw right through it. They came out immediately with a brilliant, totally unfiltered response, pointing out that there's zero technical way to verify a minor's age without building a permanent mass profiling dragnet that tracks absolutely everyone's digital footprint, every single person. And they didn't just say it in the abstract either. They reminded everyone how previous data hoarding attempts had turned into complete train wrecks. Take the Discord breach from last year. It's the perfect proof of the whole problem. The moment you force platforms to hoard a giant pile of sensitive, real-world IDs or live selfies, a hacker is going to break in at some point. And when they do, they're just going to steal all of it. Every ID, every face. That's not a hypothetical. That's the pattern over and over again. And here's the part that really matters. This isn't some spontaneous freakout over one single announcement. This is the culmination of a massive narrative arc that started way back in May. That's when a powerhouse coalition of 19 independent privacy organizations, including the Tor Project, Mozilla, Proton, Mullvad, and all the rest of them joined forces to publish a historic open letter. And that letter warned the world that mandatory digital checkpoints are fundamentally incompatible with a free society. Not inconvenient, not risky, incompatible. And the politicians? They genuinely thought they could just coast right past that May backlash. They figured they'd quietly sneak those compliance tools into the background while the closed-door consultations wrapped up and nobody was really watching. But instead, the resistance escalated hard. Because these companies collectively realized something. If they don't fight back right now, in this exact moment, the open internet as we know it is going to vanish permanently. There's no version 2. There's no do-over. So they dug in. And let me tell you, the specific way these companies are fighting back is honestly so satisfying to watch, because they're completely tearing up the traditional corporate PR playbook and throwing it in the trash. Take Mullvad, for example. Their co-founder went on the offensive earlier this year against the UK's broader push for device scanning and mass surveillance. And they didn't just put out some boring, over-sanitized press release that nobody on earth actually reads. No, they literally went out into the streets of London itself and started projecting a massive banned anti-surveillance advertisement directly onto the walls of major buildings. And why did they have to project it onto the walls? Because the UK's advertising clearance body refused to let it air on British TV in the first place. So they took it to the streets. And that is exactly the kind of high-energy, unapologetic resistance that changes the entire game, because it forces everyday people to wake up and actually see the reality of these digital checkpoints for what they are. And meanwhile, Mozilla has been running its own quiet masterclass in refusal. They formally threw down heavy opposition against any rules that would force VPN providers to act as age-gating checkpoints. And their argument is beautifully simple. Turning a privacy tool into an identity tracking filter completely defeats the entire legal and ethical purpose of why people use encryption in the first place. You can't take the one tool designed to protect people and rewire it into a tool that tracks them. That's not a compromise. That's a betrayal of the whole point. And this is where these companies are realizing they hold an absolutely insane amount of leverage. And here's why. Their entire business models are built on something called zero-knowledge architecture. And what that basically means is this. When some state official marches in and demands that Proton or Mullvad hand over user logs or integrate an age-scanning widget into their software, the companies can just calmly look them dead in the eye and say they physically cannot do it. Not that they won't, that they can't, because the data simply doesn't exist on their servers. It was never collected, it was never stored, there's nothing to hand over, and it is a beautiful, elegant, technical roadblock that completely paralyzes the entire enforcement side of these laws. And watching a multi-billion-dollar government surveillance initiative get completely jammed up, ground to a halt, all because a small handful of fiercely independent developers refuse to compromise their encryption standards. That is exactly the kind of failure that makes this entire timeline so fascinating to follow. The little guys are winning, and they're winning on principle. So honestly, at the end of the day, what we're witnessing here isn't some simple dry policy debate about tech safety. It's much bigger than that. It's a permanent, defining struggle over how the entire internet is going to be structured going forward for all of us. And the good guys, the actual good guys, are refusing to cooperate with the blueprint. Governments around the world have spent the last few years just assuming that if they threatened tech platforms with enough astronomical fines, everyone would eventually cave, roll over, and build the infrastructure for a dystopian digital ID passport system all by themselves. That was the entire bet. But they completely underestimated what happens when the actual gatekeepers of web privacy decide to form an organized resistance network. When they choose to stand up, call out the hypocrisy for exactly what it is, and start building tools specifically designed to bypass these digital turnstiles. Because companies like Proton, Mullvad, and Mozilla are handing casual, everyday users an actual shield to fight back against this sudden wildfire of institutional overreach. And that genuinely gives you some real hope, because it proves the corporate tech world doesn't always have to cave to state surveillance. It proves that a dedicated group of genuinely ethical engineers can push back against a bad law simply by standing firm on their principles and refusing to blink. The lawmakers wanted a completely locked-down, heavily profiled playground where they could track your late-night browsing habits down to the exact microchip inside your device. That was the dream. But instead, they triggered a massive industry revolt that shifted the entire balance of power back toward human privacy. Drop a comment, hit like, subscribe, all that. See you.